for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Calling the March 5th, 2020 Village Board meeting to order. Number 2, roll call, shows everyone here is here and present. Number 3, agenda changes. If there are none, we'll move to 4, consent agenda. A, February 6, 2020, regular board meeting minutes. B, February 6, 2020, closed session meeting minutes. C is licenses and permits as presented. And D is presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, we will need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Motion carried. Number 5, we will open the public hearing for AV-1-20 to rezone property from C2 Highway Commercial and I2 General Industrial to R3 Multifamily Residential District. This property is located at CSM 170, Lot 1, Class Highway SCM 1170, Outlot 1, and E 363 feet of northeast, southeast, LYN of highway, less highway section 34, T22N, R15E in the village of Hortonville, Outagamie County, Wisconsin. If anyone wishes to speak, would you please state your name and address?
My name is Tina Whiting, and I live at N2707 Gibbons Road, which my property is 18 and a half acres, and my entire south property line borders the property that you were talking about. I've been there 29 years. I've never had neighbors. I'm not against rezoning it and making it a multifamily unit. However, I do have horses and other animals, which I know can be a attractive nuisance, and in the interest of safety of, you know, if you got kids or curious teenagers or adults even coming over onto my property, they'll pet the pretty ponies. I think it's a huge liability and a safety issue, so I would like to request that a fence be mandatory between their property and mine, like a privacy fence of some sort, like not easily to just walk through. That's all I had.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions?
We'd be looking for a motion and a roll call vote to approve what Nathan has provided as O-2-20. It is a signature document. This would be in reference to what Jeannie had read earlier, which I will not repeat. But we did have a planning and zoning meeting earlier last month, and they approved Z-1-20, which would be the zoning, planning and zoning request. There was a roll call and a unanimous motion to approve. So at that point, we'd ask any of the village board members to make a motion and an approval of O-2-20 to have these properties rezoned.
And just to clarify her concern, all we're doing in this section is just simply rezoning it.
I understand.
When it comes down to the working with the developer on that property, then that's when we would discuss those types of terms and
Sure.
stuff. Just this is, okay.
There were other concerns with the cemetery as well, so there,
Yes.
a lot of what is going to be defined would be with engineering, final grading, and then a site plan for the development. At this point, the next stages would be to come into an agreement with the number of units and proposed evaluation of the property moving forward, and then final plans would be coming in the future. So there will be input on that and other opportunities to discuss it.
Okay, and I'm on planning zoning, so if anybody has any specific questions that maybe we addressed that night, I can answer, or Jeannie was there, I think Jim, you were there, sitting down, and,
Peter?
Peter was there as well, but if anyone has any questions,
Scott is also here with SC Swiderski.
yeah. 'Cause currently it's zoned industrial and highway commercial, so right
Correct.
now, an industrial building could go in there, or
Correct.
highway commercial buildings could go in there.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a numerous amount of developments that could go in there. You could
Yeah.
have a gas station in there, you could have a restaurant in there, you could have numerous. It's basically limitless.
Are there any other questions? If not, we will close the public hearing. Number 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
We did approval, we could have a motion of approval on that.
Oh, do we need a
Yeah.
motion?
Yep,
Yes.
O-2-20. to
Okay.
approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve O-2-20 rezoning.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will now close the public hearing. Number 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. There are none.
She took care of it.
Okay.
That was- yep.
Number 7, committee reports, library board.
We had a meeting this past Tuesday, and I think Ally's gonna cover a lot of it in her report. We had director's first part of her review, and I just wanted to mention the book sale is scheduled for the last weekend in May. That's basically a Friends of the Library issue, but wanted people to know about it.
Are there any other questions for Pat? If not, we'll move to 8, unfinished business from previous meeting, and there is none. 9, new business. A is R-6-20, personnel manual amendment.
Okay, this was in the packet. Hopefully you all have copies in front of you. So essentially what I did is I included 3 pages of the current grievance procedure. And then I duplicated that verbiage, and I added a highlighted section in the packet. So essentially what that highlighted section does, and this comes from my review last month, what it does is it adds another layer of administration in case there's a grievance. If a department head has a grievance against me, they would go to the executive committee, they go to the village president, and then she would take that on to the executive committee. If an employee has a grievance with their direct supervisor, department head, they could come to me and I would then take it to the executive committee. It adds language which gives opportunities for people to go to another level without directly impacting their direct report.
So you would take it, not to Jeannie, to the president, but you'd bring it right to the executive committee?
If it was against me?
Right, you
correct,
said that.
Correct.
But if it were a village employee,
If a village employee, let's say one of Carl's guys had a grievance against Carl, they had to have the opportunity to come to me.
and then you would escalate,
I would take it to the next level.
yes, you didn't bring that out.
Yes.
Okay, so she's involved in both processes.
Yes,
Grievance against you
yes,
or grievance against
Correct.
somebody else?
Correct.
Okay.
my
And then to
question,
the executive committee.
yes.
but my
That's
question is there a reason why we're doing level of executive committee versus whole board? So if there's a grievance against you or any other administrator that's ever here, as a board member, I'd want to know about that,
Absolutely.
and not just 4 people out of 7.
From
You
what-
would, you probably would, because the executive committee would report back to the board.
That's
That's
what
the
we
chain of
need.
command, that's the way it should be.
Can we add that
Well, then we.
verbiage in here? Because right now, it seems like it could be handled at executive committee, it'd be closed session, and it may not go to the board.
And maybe that's the way it should be?
It's a personnel issue.
Yeah,
It is, but
Yeah, but it's
there's
not-
7 of us on the board.
It's personnel's rights to go to executive committee, not to the whole board.
right.
You're intimidating the employees, so.
I'm not intimidating anybody, I
I'm
guess
not-
I'm just
you're
trying to
not, but you are.
understand.
The
Okay.
executive committee there is a tool for the employees.
So
Alright.
if the executive committee cannot resolve the situation, then it should go to board. But it shouldn't come before the board if it's been resolved.
But if it involves him and he directly reports to this whole board, then yes, I think we should be notified, or anybody in this board, it's a 7-member board, that he reports to.
Again, it goes to the executive committee. And it could be resolved at that level, and if it's not, then I think it should come before the board in
Yeah,
closed
It
session.
would be
I mean,
almost
is that correct?
like, it would be like his review. In the personnel manual, it goes to the executive committee, then the executive committee brings it to the full board.
Right.
So that would be the same thing with a grievance. if it
Bob, you
was
weighing in
against
on this?
him.
Yeah, it's so in the past, when we've had this, the executive, like Carl says, a lot of the things aren't really shared fully. It's not a repeat of everything that was addressed there. But the executive committee would then indicate that the matter was at least resolved or handled.
I mean, at least there would be
Yeah.
that communication that there was a grievance
Yes,
and it was resolved, or,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, I
that's
mean,
definitely communicated to the board, but,
That's what I'm worried about, because if an employee comes to me as a board member and I say, you need to go through this grievance process, and then they do that, and then.
well, but again, it's not, I guess it depends on the situation, Julie. I can foresee a situation where an employee would have a grievance that, I mean, are we talking like the identity of the employee?
No,
That
I mean,
may very well be, something that shouldn't be shared either. So I think
Mhm.
that's the reason for the process,
Right.
as Carl was saying.
okay. I'm
And it
just,
wouldn't be shared if it went to executive committee.
No, unless there was a reason, again, it depends on how much is known about it. If, I think the last one I'm thinking about, it was more commonly known what the issues were and the problems were, so then that is shared more with the board. So it just depends on the situation.
I just want to make sure that if somebody would come to me as a board member and I say, you have to follow this grievance procedure, this is what you need to do, that they're handing it off to the village president is going to executive committee, and I will never know how this ended.
Right, but
Not
it-
that I need to know how it ended,
No.
but at least that it was addressed. I want to know that it was addressed, that their grievance was heard.
I guess, yeah, but the people doing it, the executive committee, I guess, in that capacity, they're wearing a different hat. They're a grievance committee, and so,
Okay.
they are to try to, make a decision on that level, so it's not really a board decision. It's, we have to provide a way for people to be able to resolve their grievances. And then if they, that's the last level of the village review. If they're aggrieved yet, they can take it further.
I just want to know that if an employee goes that step, not that anyone's looking to do that, and I want to be clear on this, that if they follow this process, it goes there, but it goes beyond the village president, not just, so if maybe they don't like the village president, maybe they don't get along with the village president, but at least it's going beyond that, so it's not just one person deciding whether or not it goes to the executive committee or even beyond that.
I think it's pretty well established in writing as to the procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be up to the executive committee to escalate it to the board if there's some dissatisfaction with the ruling or the outcome. Then we could address it in closed session.
If they can't agree amongst the,
Hmm?
if they can't agree amongst that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I just need to understand that process from an employee's perspective. If I file this grievance and I'm gonna take that big step, because it is a big step, I just need to know that it's being handled. Okay?
I have a question. Yes, sir. Not nearly as complicated. The one where it starts at the end of the first line, it says immediate supervisor or department head. Do we have anybody that is like an intermediate supervisor that
No,
would be
but-
skipping over a department head to go directly to
But
you?
other areas in the personnel manual refer to them as an immediate supervisor, subject.
Oh, okay, so it's a
Covering
neither,
all.
so it's the same term. Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a way to skip over a department head to go directly to you.
No,
We've got a superintendent.
We got a
of public works, and we've got
superintendent.
We
a-
get a sergeant, so
Yeah.
really, the chain of command would be for my officers to go to the sergeants.
correct.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
what I was
sergeant
thinking. That's why when I
reports-
read immediate supervisor
Right.
or department head, meaning that if somebody has a problem with your sergeant, they don't skip you and go to David. it goes to you, which, and then it goes above there. The way that I read it, to me, it says, skip the department head, go right to David.
Correct.
I just-
However, dealing with the PD, we're also unionized.
Union.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
I mean, and any other, you know, public works, anything else that has an intermediary supervisor, that to me, this reads, skip Carl and go to David. That's what it reads to me. I just wanted a clarification.
No problem. Julie, the other reason, no, just for clarification, I was under the understanding that, and it's written because I was under the understanding that the executive committee was staying in force after the last
Yeah.
discussion.
Right.
So,
Are there
Have
any
you-
other questions?
Jim, how do you think that should read? It does kind of read that.
I-
It's like
I
my
think it
superintendent
does.
can go right to him and I might not know anything.
Yeah,
It says here, you,
I think there's,
your
I think
department
there
head.
needs to be a clarification added into there.
I agree.
And I think there's just some verbiage in here that denotes that, you know, if your immediate supervisor, I don't know, if it is the department head, then you go to David, but if you have an immediate supervisor, then you have to go to the department head. So I'm, Bob, my
Or,
mind's not working right
or maybe
for,
put the
for
chain
thinking of the
command.
verbiage here. What's that?
For the police department, we use the verbiage chain of command.
Mhm.
Yes.
So,
Org chart, you know, I'm sure we have some sort of mental org chart, but do we actually maybe have
it's in the personnel manual.
personnel manual?
Yeah, the word "or" is what kills me here, because when you say immediate supervisor or department head, you know, you can go to the administrator.
Then,
Yes.
then to,
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
make sense.
that would work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Just change the wording.
you can do that.
Thank you.
You're familiar with chain of command.
I'm very familiar with that. You get in a lot of trouble if I skip it.
You bet.
Any other changes? If not, we'll need a motion to accept this with the changes.
Motion to approve R6-20 with the changes noted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I will produce that verbiage for the next meeting.
Okay. Motion carried. B is mapping and zoning.
I'll take that. The village, I should say village, administration plans on making upwards of 18 amendments to our official street map. We had approved 16 of those amendments back in 2015, but we had some personnel issues come up at that time, so it kind of got put on the back burner. And since then, we've had two recent changes that included street vacations in the near Parker Heights subdivision, and also the addition of Wild Wind subdivision. So what I'm gonna do is, it's, the majority of that, well, everything's been already approved by the board. Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through McMahon, our engineering firm, and have them create a new official village street map. Something that's dynamic, can be improved every time we need it. And part of that is, the reason for updating the mapping is because we overlay our zoning map on top of our official street map. So I need McMahon to update our official street map, and then they're gonna take that map and they're gonna build us a GIS map, a layer for our GIS that's online. Anyways, once we get that layer online, the village does have a GIS website that's available to the public. It's not quite fully functional yet. Some stuff is, some stuff isn't. Anyways, I'm looking to have McMahon create a layer based off that GIS map, and then we'll put our zoning on there, right, Nathan? And then from that point forward, we can go on and change the zoning ourselves, the color of the zoning, that kind of stuff. So we won't be looking at a map on the wall that's had 100 revisions written on it, right, Bob? So, anywho, this is just an FYI. I'll be using planning and mapping budget line item money for it. But depending on codification and other costs, we may have to have a budget amendment towards the end of the year. So I'm expecting about $2,500 plus or minus to update all that. So it needs to be done. It hasn't been done since '93.
Just curious, does this map correlate with anything on the county level? Because the county has quite a.
Yeah, it's all intertwined. We use
Yeah.
County J survey, right-of-way
Yeah.
survey, markers, all that. that's just one of the layers that we can build upon, so,
Okay,
we actually have a really nice website.
yeah.
That'll be updated and ready to go back to the state, so we're reimbursed with our road funds.
Yeah, well, we need it for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's, I use it all the time, almost every day,
Right.
several times a day. Same with everybody in administration. Very important tool. So. Anywho, like I said, we may overspend that budget item, but we'll take care of that at the end of the year. That's all I have on that. Unless you guys have any questions. I think we're still using the map that was probably old when you started, Gina.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got for that.
Any questions for Carl? If not, we'll move on to C. We Energies work request number 4485400 for 330 East Main Street, Highway 15.
I'll take that one as well. A while back, we had some complaints about nighttime visibility and safety of those people turning into the shopping center, especially after dark. Anyways, at the time, I had told you I had an estimate of about $2,800 for We Energies to put the pole in and install the lighting and get all the permits and all that. Anyways, we got the final cost quote back. That's in your packet. The final price is $3,917.67. Since it's about $1,000 higher than before, I'm gonna look for you guys to reauthorize that, make a motion for that.
What's the reason for the increase?
They didn't say. Well, you have one person who makes an estimated quote in Appleton. The engineering department down in Milwaukee, when they put it all together, they come up with their own price. So, anyways, on the handout I gave you, it has that motion on there to read. So. Again, this is being paid for out of street department funds or possibly street lighting funds. So it wasn't in the budget, so just wanted you to know that.
So what you're looking for, Carl, is a motion for this work request number?
Yeah, it should be in red on your
Okay.
handout there.
And then this letter, it says the price, that's good for 90 days. If we approve it at that price, we're good to
Yeah,
go?
yeah.
Okay,
They're pretty good about that.
all right. I'll make a motion to approve We Energies work request number 4485400 for 330 East Main Street in the amount of $3,917.67.
Second?
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. D, discussion usage policy for court juvenile conference room.
I'll take that. This came up in the senior activity meeting. Our attorney-client room, directly across the room over there. We're looking for clarification if there's any, Pat brought it to our attention. I know the ADRC and the foot clinics had proposed using a facility, the facility on site here, but we were told, or we're looking for clarification because we don't have anything to justify whether or not there's any mixed use available for that room. Am I saying that right?
Yes, I think this was a number of years ago, and I don't know if anyone here was on the board. Maybe you were, Peter, I'm not sure, but.
I'm really old.
Yeah, I know. At the time, it was proposed that the foot care clinics take place here. And the board said at that time that they would not allow it because a fee is charged. And they saw it as a for-profit. It's a $26 fee, it's a registered nurse that does this, so anybody can have their feet taken care of. And it basically covers the cost. The issue, when I spoke with the Valley VNA person, they said the issue with that room would be water access. They'd have to, go back and forth. I was over at Pinewood before the meeting tonight. Rose showed me the room, and they're next to the kitchen, so it's a much shorter. It would be like having the table right there and going into get the water. So it is a little more convenient there. But I think going forward, it would be nice to have some clarification of the feeling of the board if we want this building to be more user-friendly, open to nonprofits, we want to, I think, want to get the feeling of the present board as to if you're open to that at this time.
Even if they charged a fee, correct.
Correct. And from what I understand, that's a pretty reasonable fee, covering supplies and their time.
So it's not just specific to that room, you're
No,
talking,
that was something
They
that I
need
had put on there because they had designated that area,
Okay.
but in general,
yeah.
Julie,
general.
we'd want to be able to use the whole facility if they wanted to have a charge clinic in here. Because there are multiple groups that have been reaching out for other clinics as well.
And they do charge at Pinewood. It isn't just for Pinewood residents. Anybody can go, $26. They also have a clinic out at the Y. But we've heard from a few people that if we had an additional one here, instead of just every other month at Pinewood, that we may have more people that would opt to come to Hortonville. So, not for sure that it'll happen, but just want to know if it's an option.
For scheduling.
So they charge a client $26. Do we charge them?
I would hope not.
That's primarily the discussion.
And
Yeah.
this is
Whether or not we can
something
use the facility if it's open.
facilitated through the senior activities group?
Yeah, Valley VNA are the providers.
Well,
In-
okay, so I'm trying to understand, is it
Mhm.
something that the senior activities group is going to bring them in, or they're coming to, bypassing that and coming to the, village and wanting to use the
Setting
facilities?
up a clinic.
We're kind of, I guess we're asking them if they would be willing to come every month, whether it be here or over at Pinewood,
We,
senior activities.
senior activities,
And it might be something that maybe the van might bring someone, you know,
okay.
but it's another service. And no, they do not charge, Pinewood does not charge them for the use of their facility.
And somebody receiving those services may not necessarily be a senior citizen. For the most part,
Right.
they're seniors.
I
But
would
there
say
could be-
seniors or someone with a disability, I
Mhm.
would assume.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between a group that is already utilizing the facility, a group of residents that's already utilizing the facility, asking someone to come in and provide them a service, versus having an outside entity coming to the village and saying, I want to come here and charge. So that was the reasoning for my question, and from my opinion, I think it's okay in the first sense. I do think that it's something that should probably come before the board anytime any one of the village groups wants to do a for-profit or a charge in the facility. I would be opposed to having something where a group like that just came to the board and said, hey, we want to set up shop and make money in your community. But if one of the groups that's already utilizing the facility now wants to have that service here, and they're the ones here, I think that this is their building.
First of all, they are not a nonprofit. They're a for-profit,
Okay.
VNA.
Yeah.
They're here, they're using facilities, they're using a restroom, they're using the kitchen area, lights, and so on and so forth. So personally, I feel there should be some kind of a monetary charge for the use of the building. We charge everybody else.
Well, I would disagree. That
Well,
Pine-
I know you would
Because
disagree.
Pinewood doesn't charge, it's not just for Pinewood residents, it's open to the community. So there's people that aren't residents at Pinewood that are coming. They have people from Neenah and outside of Hortonville that come because they can't get in other places. I guess I see it as something that is, that room sits empty. If they decide to use it, they may do it every month at Pinewood. I don't know. But when this came up at the meeting, we wanted some clarification, and I guess I see it as a service that we should offer our residents.
Just an FYI, Pat, I was sitting here when we talked about that the first time a long time ago.
Okay.
And it was a fee, charging them is what killed the deal, and so they didn't come here.
Mhm.
And that was at $9 is what they were charging at that time, so. Again, you're the board members, but I'm just saying, that's what stopped them from coming here last time.
Well, and it's a
And if you're
registered.
sponsoring it, that's a different story.
Yeah, it's a registered nurse, so it's a person with medical background and the capability. So someone with diabetes would feel safe as opposed to going to have a pedicure,
Do we charge the senior activities and things like that.
We could charge them 27.
Smart-
No, I mean, do we
smart.
currently charge them to utilize the facilities?
No.
Excuse me, I have to go to the restroom.
All nonprofits are free.
All nonprofits are
Like
free.
when the Girl Scouts use the facilities and all that
So
stuff, that's
Little
all free.
Leagues, anything.
But if they, like if the senior activities group wanted to bring a speaker in, right, and you were paying the speaker, would we charge for that?
No.
I
Well,
mean, but you're paying the speaker and the speaker's making money,
we have a budget line
yeah.
for the senior activities, and for example, Autumn Fest, we charged booth fees, and then that covered the speaker. We
Okay.
had that over at the Catholic Church though, because this room was too small, but, for the most part, it's a wash for most senior activities, but again, the goal of the committee from the get-go was to try to offer more services for our community, our residents, our seniors.
And we have waived things in the past for people. And like we said at the meeting, that room never gets used, maybe once a year. So I mean, what are we doing with that room anyway? It's not like, we're saying, oh, you're gonna take over this whole room. They're gonna take over that little room. That would be it. That never gets used.
And there would be people waiting, you know, because they make appointments to come in.
And
I think for simplification, I think if we just, like it was said, Jim, at any instance that a group wants to come and use a facility, we'll bring it to the village board if it's not a not-for-profit for your approval.
yeah,
If they want to come in and charge a fee, we would bring it to you for clarification. I think that's probably the best thing moving forward, is to make a decision.
I mean, this is not a situation, I'm sorry, Sean.
It
go
is
ahead.
Yeah,
situational.
I just don't think that we need to,
Yeah.
I think we need to make it very general, because if we
Yep.
get too specific on specifically this clinic, it's going to be, we're gonna have different rules for every little thing, and that's not gonna work. So,
Because it could be collecting blood, it could
Right.
be, you know, certain things we need to think of. So I think anytime somebody that's not a non-for-profit wants to make a proposition, we just put it in front of the board.
It is not like somebody's coming in and doing pedicures with toenail polish and the whole works.
Right.
This is for
Yeah.
the health and safety of
Absolutely, it's a
people who
service,
have
it's an
And it's
amenity.
circulation
Yeah, it's an
issues.
amenity,
This is-
it really is an amenity.
It is, and it's a benefit to a population in our community that desperately needs that.
Okay.
I agree,
mean,
Pat.
There's really nothing to decide, we just want a discussion moving forward so we know how to take it, right?
Yes, and I can update you if we want to increase. We're trying to gauge the need right now to see if there's a waiting list, if we need to increase it to every month, and then we may be asking for the room, depending on what. But wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, we'll move to E, discussion, update, timeline of municipal activity center.
So, in the packet that I handed you tonight, it's stapled, would be the second page below my report. I had proposed a way back through the committee of the whole to bring this update. We're at a point right now where there's gonna be a lot more to this project moving forward, so I just wanted to give you a quick update to where we're at. The current plan, just a floor plan, is attached. Now, that plan is not set in stone. It is the blueprint. That is actually the third rendition that we got from Keller Structures. This takes into a lot of account what the Legion has asked for, as well as the Women's Auxiliary. If you notice under the senior room title there, you're looking at approximately 2,164 square feet for the open area. This is approximately a 3,200 square foot building. To put this in perspective, what you are looking from the drop-down screen top portion right below the Legion room to that bottom vestibule is approximately 1.5 times this room. If you square off this room, it's about 1.5 times. So it's a substantial building. It's a nice increase of the size. So the reason we had a lock-in plan with Keller Structures is in order for us to move forward with grant funding and potentially submissions of grants, which I have listed here, we need to get some kind of costing calculator made. So we've done that with Keller. We've locked in this plan right now moving forward. We haven't picked a site. We just had to secure this plan, and they're gonna have a rough estimate of what this building would cost to build by April 1. We're looking at some grant applications that are due in May. So in order to have some financials to put on those grant applications, we had to have a costing tool. So we locked in this plan for right now. The current CIP that does start next year, we do have $70,000 a year put into paying for this facility. So we do have a way to finance it. The grant submissions that we're currently working on are with the Vader Foundation, AARP, USDA Rural Development, as well as CDBG and the Community Foundation. So with lots of opportunity here that we're working and looking into. I have also written an article that will ask for more public input. That'll be published in the Village Voice. That's coming out in April. And then having met with the senior community this past week, they had some suggestions, possible other inclusions, ADRC clinics like Pat and I just discussed with like the foot care clinic, more with Park and Rec, HYS, potentially young and adult daycare. They had a lot of options. That group did do some tours. So long story short, there's a lot more public input that will be put into this project before it is come to a proposal or potentially development down the road. We have also talked about the potential of having issues with the land and site that's on this campus because the area is proposed is adjacent to the retention pond over here. There was some concern with the parking there and access. So just this past week, we did reach out to the Weasler family who owns the parcel directly adjacent to this parking lot on this side. I spoke with him last week. They are in complete agreement. If the village so chooses to move forward with this, they would be more than happy to have their land appraised and then be sold to the village if we deemed it would be necessary to help offset. That would potentially open up more of an option for parking and better access. So we'll look at everything. Like I said, this process will more than likely take a good portion of 2020 for planning, advocacy, and fundraising, which leads me into, Jeannie would be number F on the line, the administration garage project. If there's any more questions before we move into that.
This building?
Yes, sir.
Is this going to be, this may just be my memory, I'm trying to remember, is this gonna be handed off, or is this going to still fall under the purview of the board? It's like public works facilities fall under the purview of Carl, but, so we don't deal with day-to-day, like an issue like what we just talked about here. Are we gonna be at that level with this building when
This facility is being proposed to be not rented. This would be used for all the village facilities that we had, ADRC, Meal Site, Tai Chi, Strongbones, Stepping On, Legion, Ride Share for the vans,
Okay,
open to the public, 7 a.m. till 4 p.m., just like the village hall could potentially be if it was an active community center.
okay.
We saw good things today. When I was at the Opera House today, there were 16 people playing cards. Those 16 people also stayed for the meal. So the numbers are increasing.
So the usage of this is gonna be managed through the administrative office?
Correct.
And not through the board?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Unless
So
there's
there's
a question that comes
I
up.
mean, there is a potential to grow. The lady who is now the meal site manager has expressed interest in doing more with the village if an opportunity exists, where she could potentially take on like 3 hours in the morning to coordinate senior activities before the meal site program starts.
Okay. I was just wondering if it was gonna be managed like, because like these spaces are basically controlled by the board.
Correct.
And like the Opera House is controlled mostly, with the exception of setting
Pricing,
rates and
yeah.
pricing and stuff like that, it's controlled through the office over there, so. I was
We're
just
trying to
looking for clarification
dedicate,
as
we're
how
trying to
this was gonna
dedicate a
be.
facility that down the line would be able to house all of the growing
Yeah.
project or programs that the village is trying to build.
Okay,
So,
I'm
with the
just
help
looking
of
to see
the
who was gonna
CDBG.
take care of managing it.
Yep.
But we don't really manage this
We just,
room.
we were
We
just
do.
in the process of doing it right now.
We were talking about fees.
Well,
No, we were
Yeah.
talking
No,
about
no,
whether or
no.
not we can use
Use
it
it.
for a specific
Yeah,
use.
no.
No, not for
Really.
using it for use, but whether or not we charge a fee for
Yeah.
using it. That, I guess that's the difference, Jim.
Yeah, we, the admin office really
Yeah.
run, it's
Yeah.
the same thing as the Opera House.
Yep.
Yeah,
You guys have
Okay.
control of the fees and kind of the rules, we just enforce them.
okay.
So if a fee question comes up where if somebody wants to, like, but it's not rentable, you said, but let's say it becomes rentable and somebody wants to waive the fees, that then goes, I'm not looking to oversee
Well,
it.
no, I'm just looking like if somebody for a for-profit wants to start doing stuff, is this gonna come in front of the board for that purpose? Or somebody else is gonna administer?
This is the biggest thing that has
usage.
happened with
Get
this
it.
facility and the Opera House. We have gotten to the point where we have so many services that we're trying to offer,
Yeah, mix with them.
and we're mixing them in with rentals, and the rentals are congesting
Yeah.
the services, no different than here and at the Opera House. So now we've gotten to the point where we're angering the groups that we're trying to grow.
I hear
So
you.
we're trying to dedicate a facility that would be for the people, because a lot of people don't wanna use this facility because it was promised to them, and now has taken over with the village board, the library, and all the other programs that we're doing. So we're trying to develop it. And if we have a potential long-term tenant in the Opera House, we need to accommodate this facility. So
Yeah.
we're just getting ahead of the game in case that does happen January 1 of next year.
I just want to be sure Jim understands though, that
I don't.
it's still a village-owned facility. The administration handles the administration of it. The only reason why we discussed that room was because of a fee waiving.
But
It
we
wasn't
don't.
what can go in that room, it was whether or not we waived the fee.
So Tai Chi will not be renting this space.
No, they would be using that space.
But if the foot clinic went in there,
But we don't,
you know, but it
Correct.
could potentially be where I don't want that extra administration, Jim, but what I'm saying is if somebody came in there and it was for non-for-profits, but somebody is a for-profit, the administrative office at that point would have to make the decision, okay, what do we do here?
I mean, but when somebody rents the
That
Opera House,
facility?
we don't get,
If that facility became
would
rentable,
I would give it under the purview of the senior activities committee, because that's
correct,
what would make sense to me.
yeah.
Allow them to run it.
Get the calendar set up.
All the discussion was for that room tonight was whether or not to waive a fee, or a potential waive a fee. It wasn't
yeah,
about who
but,
can
but
use it.
I was trying to draw the distinction, because if there's somebody that goes into the Opera House and there's a question of, okay, what are we gonna charge them? That doesn't usually come back to us. That's managed, separate, that's managed outside of the board, so that,
Yeah,
the
we
only
set
reason
the fees.
the only reason this one came to us is because it's in this building.
But
And
we
we
set the
rent
rental
this
fees
room.
for Opera House. We set those fees.
Yes.
And for here,
Yeah,
but there would be no rental there in the new building.
correct. But we set the Opera House rental fees, we set the rental fees here, and if, in the future, if it became where somebody wanted to rent it for whatever reason, even though that's not the vision right now, then, yeah, it would be no different than any of the other facilities.
I was just looking for clarification,
Okay.
because every space that we have in the village, with exceptions, but every public space that we have ends up being expanded for different types of uses. And when those different types of uses get proposed, then somebody has to be the administering authority to determine whether or not you can utilize that space. And this is a big space, and we're building another building, and we're gonna do this, and I'm just looking for clarification as to is this going to still fall under our purview, or is there somebody else that's going to completely administer this? Because it's being referred to as the senior building, so is the senior committee going to handle that building completely and we're hands off? And they decide that they wanna do this, and, you know, maybe we weren't happy with that, or that's not what it was intended to be, but we're not touching it? Or is it going to come back in front of the board for potential future uses that we haven't considered?
I think it
That's,
very well
that was the
could.
clarification I was looking for.
Yeah, I think it could.
Okay.
I have one question concerning that room. So that room would be available on court nights, correct? Okay. I didn't know if it was gonna end up having things stored in it, and then we won't have access, because if we have, like, our village attorney, and she needs to speak with the officer
Right.
in that room, and then we have the other attorney, we need to have two separate rooms for them to be in.
Right.
Okay.
That's not
They-
how it works. It's got a cart and
Yeah, they would bring-
they know how many
Sure.
appointments they have and they have a cart.
I
My
figured
aunt
so
does
much,
this.
I just want to
So
clarify.
they've got a specific amount of supplies for the number of appointments that they have, and it's like a rolling cart. They come in, the nurse goes to whatever clinic, gives them all the supplies, they go set up and they leave.
Sure.
That's it.
I just wanted to clarify, so
Yeah.
that's the intention for that room.
And
So,
there's
because
no
I was
file?
reading the usage policy for the court juvenile,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Chris, there's no files or anything else in that room right now, is there?
all there is table
Table
and
and
chairs.
chairs.
Yeah.
It's a bigger
Perfect.
room.
That's what it is.
And right now, the clinic at Pinewood is from 1 to 4 on the third Thursday of the month, so they would be done before,
Not during court times anyway.
and court is on Wednesdays, right?
Yes. First
Is it-
Wednesday or the second Wednesday
Quarterly.
every third month.
Okay,
But that time is blocked out anyway, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't be rented.
Right.
can I just comment too on this, on the building, is that okay? David presented to our senior activities committee on, Thursday, last Thursday. And, there's a lot of course, word gets out, and so there's a lot of questions, concerns in the community. So I think we're just asking, and it's happening, more transparency, let's open it up for discussion, and I think David and Jean and I met about it, and not be set in stone on anything as far as location or building size, because people are concerned about the parking and all of these other things. And what can the building be used for? How, you know, how open are we to different opportunities? Can we do multi-generational things and stuff? So I think it's a work in progress, is it fair to say? And that we're just asking for continued discussion, and we have a very active community and more people that are coming to the meetings expressing their opinions, so.
All I would say about that is that we should maintain and track those types of requests of what types of activities they're looking to do in there, and we need to define that when we decide on this, so that if the scope becomes much broader, then we need to revisit and how it's going to be handled and who's going to manage that, because if it becomes a situation like this or the Opera House because it's expanding, then I think we have a change of scope, and then we need to relook at how it's being managed and who's involved in that. And that's, I think, what your point was.
And if we're gonna pay for it.
If we're gonna pay for it, because under the current setup of what is intended there, okay, fine, that's what it is. We don't really need to be involved in that from a board, in my opinion, from a board situation. It's really just someone keeping the schedule clean and organized. But if at some point the scope changes based on additional wants for that building, then I think that's when we revisit this again. Because until that point, I mean, you can't predict for every possibility. That would be ridiculous. So at this, and we also don't want to micromanage it if it's just going to be this. So we need to, I think, in my opinion, we establish what those things are, what we say we don't need to be involved if it's just these things. If it expands beyond that, then the policy is we revisit and discuss, because otherwise we're micromanaging, or we're, you know, it seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's happening nationwide, maybe worldwide now, is more of multi-generational focus. So just for an example, there were 4 of us that went to Plymouth and looked at a place that's called Generations. They have a building that houses 4K and daycare on the top level, which has it's built into a hill. So they have a separate entrance, but they rent. So they rent for this building. The seniors are on the bottom floor. There's a separate room for agencies to visit. So social services, energy assistants can all be there for people to come in. They have a restaurant deli that serves the senior meal site every day, plus the 4K and the daycare meals. So I guess and I don't need to go into all the detail on it, but I just, we're hoping we're not set on, it has to be this. That we can think outside the box, and if we get bigger, then we have to revisit it. So I appreciate, you know, because I don't, and I think I speak for our committee, we don't want it to be a Band-Aid solution for now. You know, there's 20 people coming, so let's make it for 20 people. And I think David, you know, he's heard that too, that we think sustainability and long-term.
But I also think that we can't just say this is a senior building, because that's not just what it is either.
And that's what we're
because
asking.
it's also for the Lions or the Legion and all that stuff. So it's not just a senior building. It's a defined building for this, and this. And if we get beyond that, then I think then we need to revisit. But if it's just for this, and this, and that's what we intend, then it can be managed outside of the board, in my opinion.
You realize with the Legion in there, you're gonna have some alcohol issues.
Do they have an area, like, as if, like right now, the Opera House, all that, it's behind a locked door?
If you look at the plan there.
Is
there's
it,
a
I
Legion
was
room
trying to
and
figure
a
that out on the
Legion
plan.
It says, in the
That's all
back left
taken into
corner, it says Legion room,
consideration.
and it's got a vault and a squad room.
So that's what that was for, okay.
Yeah.
Still a violation.
What?
Still a violation.
Yeah, it is.
So is the Opera
It's
House.
an ordinance
Currently,
violation.
and
So is the Opera
future,
House.
just saying.
Yep, currently and.
So
future.
we'll have to look at that.
Absolutely.
That'll be a big
Potentially would have
issue.
to buy a liquor license.
Buy a liquor license,
So-
Right.
if there's any available.
Which is
Oh,
something we
yeah.
can look into.
A full liquor license.
Absolutely.
I guess I'm trying to think of the cost of the building. Is this a potential referendum
No,
with the
we have
public
a
input?
financing tool built into our capital improvement
Okay.
plan that was proposed. Every year, we would obviously put that capital plan in front of you. What we handed you, the 5-year plan, it has $70,000 allocated per year moving forward. So we could finance this, take a note on it and pay for it.
When are we gonna ask for some, or like notify the public for their input on this?
It starts in the Village Voice, we just haven't predetermined, I said there'll be future dates, but that's something that we'll put out on social media channels and other avenues, once we set a date on it. It was too early, Julie, we don't know any of the financials.
I just would hate to get so far into it and then public input
Yep.
looks
And
at
that's what
that
we've been
outside the
asking
box.
for all.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be real honest with you, April 1 is gonna be a wake-up call, because what you're seeing in front of you there, I'm gonna propose is between $750,000 and $900,000.
You're proposing, but I mean, it'd be nice if the public, I mean, we come
I
to
understand
meetings,
that.
look
What I'm
around,
saying
and
is what
Thomas
you're
here.
looking on in that blueprint that you're looking at, that simple plan is gonna put us out between $750,000 and $900,000. So at what point do
With no
we decide,
revenue. With no revenue coming
with
in.
no
from-
revenue coming in? So at what point do we wanna say, hey, we gotta think about, yeah, we wanna have all these services?
And who's gonna pay for maintenance and
Mhm.
cleaning
Exactly.
and all
Yeah,
of that?
exactly. Constant,
So
yeah.
that's where more input is gonna define the scope of the project.
Yeah,
I just wanted to give a simple update on the matter here tonight. That's what we were looking to do.
I'm hopeful there's like an open house sort of
There'll be
situation.
many of them, Julie.
Good,
Yeah, absolutely.
good.
That's the requirement of one of the
Yeah.
grants, right?
Yep, yes, yep,
Good.
yep.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to F, admin garage project.
Okay, so if you backtrack, before this first plan here, the original plan had a garage attached on it. And that plan was to house the ADRC vans that we have received, plus the admin vehicle, which we currently have is the Explorer. It's not really worth garaging, but we're thinking in the future. Not to mention, we have a serious storage problem on our hands here in the Village Hall. We have remedied some of that, but our friends of the library consistently fill our shelves with
Oh my gosh.
with a lot of material. So, we have put together a bid. These are all, it's another piece on the packet that is in my packet that I handed you. We have proposed a 32 by 32 by 9 foot tall garage to be built on the north end of the parking lot. So if you pull into the back parking lot area, between the dumpster panel and the power panel, we know it fits. We went as far as having VG Do-Right Concrete give us a quote. We got a quote for all the materials from New London Building Supply. The same provider of the garage doors to the PD gave us a quote for those garage doors. And then I've attached allowances for gutters. We want to install gas, so it'd be a heated facility, because there are some sensitive materials that we would be storing in there, past records as well. Installation, unit heater install, electrical service run, and then what we are proposing is, based on the numbers here, we came to a total of $31,944. No different than what we did with the 40 by 80 detached on the Public Works. I said to Carl, I proposed to Carl that we have the Public Works crew build this facility. That essentially would save the village between $7,500 and $10,000 on a construction bid. We could turn this in 1 week's time. Carl was able to secure an adult summer helper this year, which is gonna take some of the heat off of our summer interns. Pretty qualified arborist, person that's had a lot of public works experience, so time is not of the essence. What I'm asking for tonight is, because these bids came in late, in a perfect scenario, I would have put them on an agenda. We want to know moving forward, and I want the direction of the board, if we can at least, at a minimum, approve the BG Do-Right Concrete for that wall, because we need to get it scheduled. We need to get concrete scheduled. If we don't get it scheduled, we potentially will not get our concrete poured this season. That is how they're feeling right now. And that's to the tune of $97,2276. Carl can speak to this. Any of the bids that we've received for concrete, they've been the cheapest.
Yeah, PG Do-Right, we try to buy local. They typically win most of my quotes anyways, and again, they employ Hortonville people, so they're the only concrete company in town. We can go out of town and possibly save a couple $100, but it's nice to keep money in town if we're gonna do that.
If we did the concrete work, is anything gonna potentially change? I guess I don't see a plan here, or, I mean, you must have blueprints drawn up?
We have them at New London Building Supply. I mean, this
Okay.
is a squared, Julie, this is as basic as it gets. the bigger part on the bottom, if you look on there, there's $211,000 sitting in a future projects fund. Now, this doesn't hurt our rating, these are assigned funds. So we have money to use to put into this project, that we could develop this.
And this, and I've got a case of the stupid here, but, so this is a second building, but not,
It's like
it
between,
would be
right?
attached to this, but could not be part of what we're planning there.
Correct. We had initially proposed it,
Yeah,
and we are already running into space issues with the proposed senior or activity center.
Space issues on the inside, not ground space, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
So this would not inhibit this
at all.
building at all?
Not at all. Nope. In either location, if we did it over there or over here, would not inhibit it. This is basically in a area that would be almost ideal tucking.
We'll try a maintenance building too, so I can keep a lawnmower right up here.
I mean, I just feel like if we're approving concrete tonight, no offense, and I get the last minuteness of it, but I feel like once you've laid concrete, we've basically just given permission for the whole project without seeing a plan.
It's a garage, it's no different than the garage you got at your house.
32 square.
Only bigger.
Yeah,
It's about as big as your detached garage, probably, something like that.
like that size.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to visually see, that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to, and it's
It's
attached
got
to the
one big
building?
door and one small door.
No, it's detached.
It's detached.
So you would, where you would turn right in to get into the PD doors, Julie, the garage doors and the PD, you drive straight off. Dumpster, you'd run into the dumpster, right over here.
Have we considered the monthly run rate for both the new garage and the other building from an electrical, gas, whatever
Yes.
standpoint?
Yes.
I'm just saying, I mean, it's one thing to have the CapEx money to do it, but it's another thing to have the OpEx spend money to do it. What, I mean, is it heavy, or is it
For electrical and
all,
gas.
not the build, the run, the monthly rate to keep it heated, to keep it, not just the garage, I'm talking both. I'm concerned about the continuous OpEx costs that we're gonna have, not
Yeah,
not the
I don't
build.
think it'd be that bad, because we wouldn't heat it, except for coldest months, and even then we
It's
wouldn't.
just a big building to keep,
Yeah,
I think,
warm.
yeah, certainly that's a concern.
we are offsetting, potentially, that would be offsetting what we would be paying currently at the Opera House,
Okay.
which is, I would say, would be astronomically lower. Carl, 40,
Well, ADRC's giving us money for maintenance and
Yes.
operations.
Okay.
this garage would
Not
also
ADRC,
be,
but the county.
this garage would also house those vans, which we are charging for rent. We are charging for storage.
Okay, I
So,
just
yeah.
wanna make sure there's some sort of
Yeah.
offsetting.
Yep, absolutely.
Something, cause it is another added expense, so.
Absolutely.
And that can't be an agenda item on our next.
It can be,
I mean, just to give us a little bit of comfort and like Shauna's request of, like, and show us, the average with how.
okay, I mean, we can add it to next week for approval of this garage, then I'm gonna ask for the entire approval.
I'm gonna be curious too, like, emergency vehicles, fire trucks, that sort of thing, this isn't gonna inhibit any of their
Not at all.
motion.
We're gonna build it into the side of the hill. It's absolutely not touching any of the current asphalt or blacktop back there. It would be set 8 feet
Is
back.
that why there's a whole lot of trees being taken
No,
out there?
That's all storm
That's something
damage.
different.
That's all storm damage.
Storm damage,
This would be
okay.
to the west of that, Julie.
Okay,
So what are we looking at putting in here that needs heat?
Well, records, a lot of records from being transferred out, and then potentially the ADRC vans.
Okay. All right. So you're talking about like a wood frame structure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I will, I guess, we'll put it in 2 weeks then. I'll bring it back to the board in 2 weeks. But, I'll see if I can get more quotes in a 2-week time period.
I have a heated garage at home, just for the fact that I have, my furnace is outside, in the garage. And the garage is insulated so well that we keep ours at like 45 degrees. It very seldom runs. We're opening up the garage door, to drive in and out of it and everything else. So, same thing with this garage here. It's set at 65, just because we're keeping our MVCs warm and we have to get them to go right away, but it runs very seldom, so I can't really see that garage would run.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the building, I'm just curious on the
Right,
cost side of
right,
it,
for the heating
what's
cost.
gonna keep happening,
But I
because,
see that he's got it insulated, so I would think that it would.
I mean, ours is insulated too, and we have a heater, but
Yep.
it's just, it's gonna be an ongoing cost, I wanna make
Yeah.
sure that we're accounting for that.
I was just
going
looking for
forward.
reasoning why, I mean, it's because a metal shed is cheaper than a wood structure if you weren't storing anything other than vehicles or if there's a way to ship things around, you could reduce the cost significantly. I mean, if you're storing records out there, then yeah, you're not gonna put a steel building up. Because you're gonna have problems with moisture, yeah,
We
but-
still do my
yeah, mice, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
But
that would be
if
the only.
if you're building a full structure and you're storing stuff that's, I understand. That was the reason for my question.
I will resubmit in 2 weeks.
Okay.
We will now
So
move
we're gonna approve the whole thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
Once we see everything, the
Yeah.
thing is, like this packet, if I'd have gotten this even a few days ago, I could have maybe asked some questions or whatever, and I get it, you didn't have it ready, I get that. But I just feel like it
No,
was
that's
put
fine.
here, and then this is a lot of money, and once the concrete's laid, we're pretty much signing on.
I think if they do diligence and get all the numbers and show us a good plan, I
Yeah.
think we could approve it next.
Yeah,
Me.
absolutely,
And I
just,
appreciate that you were looking at, trying to do some of it internally so that we save a chunk
Yeah.
of change, because that's a
The
big
way,
deal.
the way I look at it is, it's a learning curve. We got some young operators we have a very skilled Chris Schultz on our crew who does construction on the side. We have some guys that are older, but we also have some younger guys on that crew that can learn these trades.
Plus, I'm sure it's intriguing to them to do
Yes.
something different than the normal day-to-day stuff, right?
And
So
if we
it'll be
can,
here.
we can educate some of these guys on building, this is as basic as it gets. This is a square structure, but you're gonna learn some basic framing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna volunteer my services also to help out, on this project.
Could this be completed before mowing season starts?
If we get concrete in the ground, absolutely.
Okay.
Chris said 1
Because
week.
that's when you use a lot of your manpower.
Yep, well, it would be pushing it depending on how wet it is now moving in the spring.
Okay.
There's no frost in the ground. We have 5 basements open in the village right now and there's less than 6 inches
Yeah, I
of
saw
frost.
that.
and to cut down the discussion time at the next meeting too, if you could get something to us beforehand that you got, even if it's a few days.
It's just a matter of the quotes, Julie.
Yeah,
Right
and
now,
that's
these
really-
people are swamped with quotes going into
Yeah.
the construction
Yeah.
season.
That would help.
Okay, I can move it on.
Any other questions? Now we'll move to GO-1-20 operator license authorization.
I think we brought this to the board just for a discussion, or we mentioned it, that now the governor did sign this. This bill allows the governing body of a municipality by ordinance to authorize a designated municipal official to issue operator's licenses. So I guess we're just bringing it to you. We weren't going to have you do a motion on it because we didn't know when the governor was gonna sign it, but he signed it yesterday. So,
This would allow Jane to authorize operators licenses only, rather than bringing it to you guys.
which would be the same, whatever the police department recommends, we would go with that. So I
Yeah.
guess it's,
Right, the bartender license.
right,
Yeah.
just the bartender,
Yeah.
not
So-
liquor.
Not the.
Driver's license.
I think the
Oh, no,
resale.
but not the,
The liquor license.
Not a liquor license.
Really,
Right.
all we do is a
Right.
formality,
Yeah.
really.
So
True.
we
All
would
these
go,
people that come to you, like, there's a whole list of bartenders that could be done administratively if you authorize her or someone else to do that.
so it would go through the same vetting process, except it wouldn't come before the board
Right.
Correct,
unless there's an issue.
correct.
Mhm.
If there's a denial or something, then it comes.
Okay.
The only thing, it wouldn't be part of the written record, because right now it's, we put it on the agenda and but that's entirely up to the board.
Could that be something?
Couldn't
in
it be in
the-
addition, like we do with building permits and all that
Yeah,
kind
like,
of
built,
stuff?
like, or like
Instead
in
of-
your report, any operators, like an operator license report, I love,
Sure. Whatever you would like. It could be.
So that'd be next meeting.
Okay.
And ordinance.
Chris, do you see any problem with?
No, I like the idea that it's documented someplace so that somebody can see it someplace, especially with the denials. Because if a certain business is looking for something, I know in the past we've had, not here, but in Cheyenne, where we had somebody a business who thought that they went to get their license, their operator license, and never got it. So, and they didn't know it. So they like to track it, so.
So would that make sense then in that ordinance, in that verbiage, to put a sentence in there that, a monthly list provided at board, or, I mean, something so that,
I think that could just be policy.
just
Yeah.
policy, okay,
Kind of like the Avalanche Run.
just part of the agenda and, or part of the,
For the clerk's report.
yep.
Yeah.
Are we looking for a motion on this?
No, I think that'll be, the ordinance will be presented next meeting. right?
Okay.
No, this meeting.
Oh, this meeting?
It's on there.
Yeah.
It's on there, yeah.
It-
Oh,
it-
that's right.
It was handed out.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
it was in the packet.
Yep, I'm sorry, Nate. Yep, no, Jan, you're looking for a motion.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve 01-20 operator license authorization.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
I guess I just wanted to ask about, when we're talking about all these buildings and new things happening, if there's some way we can think about sustainability and maybe, some alternative options for energy, solar. I mean, there's a lot of grants out there now. I know it's a whole new thing, but, I think other communities are looking at preparedness for climate change and expenses, and I would just like us, and it might be a lot of research, but I think it would behoove us to think long-term on those, in those ways.
Well put.
Does anyone have anything else?
Is there,
Well, there was a little, it's hard to see, but it says set up cow for discussion, because Jim asked for submissions for the record last week, or last time we met.
for the record, like people, if they want to put commentary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we were, so,
If you guys wanted to set up a cow for that or not, that's all I put on there.
well, I think I think from the discussion, most of the process already exists. It's just that it hasn't been officially documented and there isn't a formal pathway for someone to submit something to be read into a meeting. I don't know if we need to set up an entire committee of the whole meeting for that. I mean, it could just be a quick agenda. I don't see it being more than a 5-minute discussion.
Tell them your concerns.
Well, the only thing is, so when you're dealing with language and people, then if you allow people to be reading stuff into the record, there's really no way for a government to suppress certain language that gets sent to us,
Okay,
necessarily to be read into the record.
okay,
So currently, I mean, anyone can ask us on either Facebook, we respond within an hour typically, or email or anything else. People ask us to put stuff onto the agendas or have an issue. I mean, that's typically what we end up doing.
okay,
And any type of issue that comes up, it usually either gets filed with the administrator and also gets put into the president's. But we've had probably, I think, 2 since I've been here.
okay. Maybe to clarify, what my thinking was, like, we have the 5 minutes where anyone can stand up and give whatever. I mean, they're still, if they start cussing and swearing at us, it's pretty much the end of that. But we can't control their speech here either. So my thought in proposing this was to provide a different avenue for that same 5 minutes, just them not physically having to be here and sit through a meeting. Because I don't think that most people don't have the time, they don't know, or they are more comfortable submitting something in another form rather than standing in front of the board and being on camera and being put out on the internet. So
You know, if I may interject
Sure.
something here, this is not for discussion.
Yes, I know, I was just clarifying
So
what I
I don't think we
suggested.
should belabor this. If you want to have a cow meeting, why don't we call one and have the discussions
Okay.
there? I think that's the way we should approach it.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're sitting here
Yeah,
going on and on,
Okay,
bantering back and forth. So
Yeah,
I think you should make that statement.
Okay.
so are we setting that up then for in 2 weeks? Before the board
Prior to the
meeting
board?
Sure.
at 5:30?
Okay. I don't mean to be rude, Jim,
No, I was just clarifying what
Okay.
my suggestion.
because we've done this before.
Yeah.
I also have one for future discussion, and it just came up today. Okay, so we were, part of the SC Swiderski project. One of their planners sent an email off regarding park fees. So it took some time to research, we looked at ordinance code. We do have park fees for multifamily developments. They're currently at $400 per unit. So if you do the math on that, that would make the SC Swiderski pay $44,800 towards this development, towards our park fees. They're a little taken back by it, let's just put it that way. So I'm gonna put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from tonight that we readdress, and I'm gonna give a possible solution, or I've had a discussion with Scott tonight. Essentially, this is a deterrent to that development, and I don't think we should, basically, we're 2 times what most municipalities are currently, so we need to readdress that, so. I will
That'll be
make
on the
a,
agenda.
yes, I'll make a proposition to you, so we can look at the park fees moving forward, and I do have examples from other communities. I don't want it to deter this development, let's put it that way.
Is there anything else for the next agenda? If not, we'll move to 10, report of village officials, A, administrator.
That would be the first page of my packet. Something I did not put on there, but happy to report, we do have the Habitat House, which is being built on Main Street. I have reached out with my background in construction, I will be helping them, so I know 2 days for sure that I'll be leading a framing crew, so if I can do that on the company time, I do that, otherwise I will use my vacation or comp time to offset that, but I want to be a part of the habitat build in the community here, so they asked me basically to lead one of their wall framing crews, so I would be more than happy to do that. I will get more information as soon as those dates are determined. I know they're in April. The activity center, as we talked about earlier, it is off to Keller for pricing. April 1 will be the date, so we need that numbers for grant purposes. Again, we have had Legion and auxiliary input as well as the senior activity board, but there's more and more to come as we discussed tonight. Village programming, Mike Summers has agreed to come back for year 30 of his park and rec, but he has also announced that he will be ending his tenure after 30 years, so we will need to talk about that in the near future. Those are June to August dates. I'm going to make a strong recommendation that we give him some kind of party or, not a party, but a very nice send-off, because 30 years in anything you do is pretty admirable. So more to come. We're gonna have to put our head together on what happens in the future of the park and rec, and moving forward with that services. It is currently open enrollment for the supplemental insurance with Aflac for all employees. As of today, we did relocate the ADRC, Strongbones, and Tai Chi from the Opera House to this facility. Again, we are having more and more overlap of facility usage where they're going to be more confident and more comfortable in this facility. It was open on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning, so we relocated them here. Their equipment is in the storage area over to the right where the chairs and tables are stored. A big week in the village hall, or the admin building this week. Kerber Rose conducted their audit procedure this Monday through Wednesday. The report from their team is that the process is getting noticeably cleaner. So kudos to Nathan, Jane, as well as Libby and anybody who helps in the admin department. A few minor issues that will be adjusted, and then they're proposing their CAFR, which is their presentation that they will give to you, will be in July, and then we will follow up with the popular annual financial report soon thereafterwards, similar to what we did last year. We are switching our cell phones with the police, admin, and public works all getting into one package. We currently have all separate plans, so we're putting that all together, spearheaded by these two, Chris and Carl. And then on the final note, for the fund balance situation that we're in, happy to report that $174,000 of grant money is now back in the fund balance, so that helps alleviate our deficiency in that account. So that has been restored. For marketing and branding, Allegro Marketing of Appleton is in the process of producing all of the final pieces that we need to get launched for our April 6th rideshare. Those costs are all built into Outagamie's budget that they gave us along with the vans as part of the grant. And then we had outside meetings, Town of Clayton, which I'll move to the end, we can discuss that. Met 2 times with the Legion. Carl and I met yesterday with the Outagamie County Highway Commissioner and his team regarding bi-monthly planning. I met yesterday for the quarterly transportation meeting for ADRC. I was at the Town of Clayton board meeting last night, and then the village also hosted the Fox West Chamber today. On the back of the packet, I included 3 pages. The first is the signed, I guess, page from Tori Straw, who's the administrator in Clayton. And then I included the original contract dated April 19th of 2017. For bringing you up to speed, Clayton had proposed at one time holding or building large receptacles, essentially large holding tanks that people of their subdivision would deposit their waste material into. It would then be pumped, brought to the village of Hortonville for processing at the wastewater treatment plant. At the time this was signed, they were just going to be they agreed to a $25,000 per year stipend. That was collected on a prorated basis in 2017, and I believe it's to the tune of $12,500. 2018 was $25,000. 2019 was $25,000. And then upon them signing just this year with Fox Crossing, I alerted the administrator on February 5th that you are still in contract with the village of Hortonville to pay. And on February 24th, I was handed this letter saying that they no longer wish to honor this contract. I did talk to Bob on the matter. We had discussed it today. Bob stopped in earlier this morning. Essentially, I got talked to like I was a 2-year-old last night at their meeting. They don't feel like they are in need to pay this. I wanted to put it to your direction. I mean, and having discussed with Bob this morning, we have not taken 1 drop of their wastewater. Essentially, in the last 3 years, we've received $67,500 for little or no service to them. I think at what point we just stopped the bleeding and we put it to rest.
Yeah, you know, our position was, they should have told us sooner, you know, for budgeting purposes.
Correct.
They budget as well, so we're not happy with the way they handled this. But looking at the agreement, I mean, if you were to litigate it, I've been thinking about that. I think the judge would probably prorate it and we'd go to February 24, and that's not worth, you know, what's that, $2,000 or $4,000 issue then.
So that's what we would be out, 2,000 to 4,000?
Well, budgetary, we're out
best case, probably
25,000.
best.
Right, budgetary.
That's what I'm saying, probably best case scenario, right, if we were to push the issue, so you can't even litigate over that.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
I did say, and this was the final comment I made to their town, Russ Geezy. I said, if you look up the last sentence prior to your signature, it says, it is the intent of both parties to work cooperatively throughout this agreement. And I said, by you doing what you did, by just handing us a statement of cancellation, I said, you're doing the exact opposite of what you signed for 3 years ago. So,
Who put this agreement together?
well, it goes back to Al.
yeah.
But I mean, who wrote it? Like,
They
who-
did.
I mean, it's, to be honest, it's a poor agreement. It doesn't
Yeah.
have anything about exiting. It doesn't have
No,
anything
exactly.
about
No, it's very.
how long the agreement is. It just says, you know, for any renewal purposes or auto renewal. I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind
it was, I mean, they presented it, and at the time, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, we tried our best. Like Bob said, we made $60-something thousand. We didn't do anything.
No, I agree. I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
for future reference, we should be
Yeah.
careful in making sure that any type of agreement has that, because this is nothing.
I wasn't even confident we would ever get anything from them.
I don't think we authored any part of that. I think they presented it to
Right,
us.
exactly.
If I remember right.
They were getting sued.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So they
needed this for
us
DNR
to-
complacency.
I get it. I just, I see contracts every day at work, and this
Yeah.
is missing
The-
some
the-
very basic standard
The
contract.
bigger piece is that we will have a $25,000
Shortfall.
revenue shortfall this year now because of this, because this was built into our revenue stream. Carl will.
Yeah.
I put it in the bank anyway, so I'm not worried.
Good. Carl will, not the village side.
I was curious with all the stuff happening with Fast Crossing and them, if this was, and I asked about that at a couple meetings ago, because I,
So we had $62,500 of money coming in, and their truck never showed up once.
Correct.
yeah,
And it would cost us more than $2,000 or $4,000 to adjudicate this.
yeah,
Yeah.
no brainer.
What do we have to do to release them for the contract?
Well, that's exactly what I said. I was gonna talk
I
about.
think that, you know, they said they've terminated it, but I agree, I think we should also act on it and say that there's.
Okay.
We agree that it's terminated at this point, so, that we don't have any further dealings with them, and we'll send them a letter and indicate this.
Okay,
That's the
I'll
last
draft
thing I'll
something and I'll
do.
get it to you for your review. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay.
Is that something
Well,
that
couldn't
we
we just-
voted on or not?
Yeah, couldn't we just vote here
Right.
and accept their letter as a
You may-
cause for termination?
Well, that, right, yeah, just that we, yeah, you consider it terminated and we're to direct. you know,
And move on.
Just direct him, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the town of Clayton's letter dated February 24th, 2020, terminating their
Never mind.
agreement.
That's
Agenda
okay,
item.
it's not an agenda item.
We need
Yep,
to
Jane
add.
just pointed that out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yep, sorry, we can't act on it.
That's okay.
Yep, Thank you, Jane.
Next time.
I will draft it for the next meeting and then we'll have it approved and then we'll
Just
send
wanted
it.
to move it.
Okay?
Right.
Sounds good? I'll draft it for the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay.
Any questions for Dave?
When are we seeing the Main Street proposal renovation stuff? Do we have any updates on that? No? Nothing?
No other questions? We'll move to B, clerk treasurer.
The spring primary results, there were 237 total votes. 136 for Daniel Kelly, 81 for Joe Karofsky, and 20 votes for Ed Falone. And the April 7th spring election and presidential preference ballots have been approved, and we should be getting them soon. And then we did finalize the website, utility and village payments. We're still doing some tweaking, so to speak. We found out one customer was putting, what were they doing, putting in the periods or not the periods?
Yeah, it's pretty,
Putting in the periods when they put in their account number, and it wasn't taking it. So we're working through some of those issues, but we've been taking payments, and so far that's been successful, which is a big convenience for customers. Because if they do an e-check, it's 25 cents. That's cheaper than a stamp.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So what are the fees, percentage fees for processing? Do you know?
for credit card, it's 2.2%,
Oh, that's cheap.
but for, like e-check, it's 25 cents,
Yeah, okay.
so.
That's a good rate.
that's all I have.
Any questions for Jane? Now we'll move to C, director of public works.
Just a couple of notes. Horton Meadows, I think Julie, you noticed we sustained a lot of damage last summer from the storms and tornadoes supposedly. We had a lot of hazardous trees back in there, and we were finally finding time to get back in there and get that all cleaned up. The plan calls for replanting approximately 40 trees, primarily various species of pine and fir. Arbor Day, we're gonna have Arbor Day on Friday, April 24th. Library will be assisting with that, or leading into it, kind of thing. Again, the focus of that Arbor Day will be the reforestation of Horton Meadows. In case you don't know, like Jim, I don't know if you've walked back here, but we've got a trail system, and it's called Horton Meadows, all right? So I named that, so,
Never been back there. Didn't know it was there.
yeah.
Don't go now.
You actually see people in the summer walking through.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's gonna get better. You know, now that we have a capital improvement program, and we have monies available, we're gonna do some more work back there. It's gonna be really nice. My final item is a food pantry. There was some extra food delivered, so we put it in the employee break room.
And thank you, and I'll grab it. We've got the three of us are storing any excess, and if we don't see it sitting next to there, but is it okay if we open the door to the break room just to peek if
Yeah,
it's on the floor there? I mean,
don't see one.
we've been trying to keep up with it between the three of us, and we're hopeful that it turns the other way, where it's emptying out faster than we can fill it, and, yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
How's our butterfly garden growing? Did we have any luck last year?
Yeah, it actually produced a lot of seeds. I think we're doing a good job of spreading them around right now by driving all over, but we'll get it cleaned up.
Good.
Right all
Is it-
over.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Carl? If not, we'll move to D, Police Chief.
The only thing I have is the monthly statistics for the incident reporting. I handed that out for everybody.
Chief, I've had a lot of questions about the school parking. It is my understanding that they are at capacity and not issuing new parking permits unless somebody turns theirs in.
I was at public safety today.
Okay.
They are getting close to capacity. Apparently, they had opened, apparently, they're finding out they have 500 available parking spots in the parking lot. However, some of them are covered with snow right now. They opened up one of the employee parking lots over on the south side of the building and moved them over to the other portion, so they have additional parking there.
Well, and it's public, or it's private property, but the question came from a lot of parents were asking, well, they can't park on the street because it says there's a limited amount of time.
Well, there is on certain streets.
Yeah.
So, like on town, on the north side of the road, anybody can park on, but the south side of the road, the school had approached us asking about opening up parking on the south side of town, on the west side of Oak. However, I had spoken with Carl. Carl said, you know, years ago, that ordinance came into play because the kids were parking in front of mailboxes and driveways. So people on Oak weren't getting their mail or their, couldn't get in their driveways. So, I brought that back to, Sergeant Barr. He said, yep, I totally remember that now. He brought it back to, the school. So they are looking at, building an additional parking lot to the north of the north lot, of the, staff lot, I think is what they said. So they realize it. I mean, they have a sophomore, a junior, and a senior all going to school at Hortonville.
Three
And they're
cars.
driving 3 cars because they're all going to different things. So the senior might be going to Clintonville school to take a class, and so the other one might have to stay later after school for,
There's a bus though.
Yep.
They have buses,
I have.
right?
Well, no.
Not if they're going somewhere in like
They're not gonna
Clintonville.
take them
No,
to
no, no.
Clintonville.
But I mean,
They do have, they do have the buses that the kids can get picked up in the morning and,
that's my point.
Well, a
But
lot of
not-
kids are in youth apprenticeship as well. So like, for example, my daughter next year will be leaving school in mid-afternoon and driving
Right.
to.
Okay,
work.
so
So there's a lot of
but
kids
we
that do
also,
that.
we also have a lot of, we have a lot of New London kids, we have Shiocton kids, we have, you know, so the buses aren't going to New London and Shiocton to pick them up either.
But that's part of the agreement when you
Right.
decide to go outside of your district, right? So,
So, I mean, they're looking at ways of, expanding the parking lot. They're not totally out, however, we ran through the school again, 64 behind parking is how many citations we just issued, last week, for kids who didn't have parking passes, and that's the problem. And that's why they have us going into the schools, is because the kids are not obtaining parking passes or not displaying the parking passes, and then they're taking the spots of those who purchase parking passes.
I mean, ultimately, this isn't really our problem, other than the sense that you're going and giving a bunch of tickets, right? And the
Right.
school has to figure out how they're gonna
They
solve
need to-
that, and the
right.
school needs to figure out the parking pass. I mean,
Right.
again, not our problem, but
Absolutely,
I-
we're just assisting.
I mean, to me, it's, well, we got 64 tickets, we get money, right? I mean, I don't know how, it's not our job, I don't think, to solve the school's problem.
No.
So,
It's the street parking, Sean.
I don't think that we should do anything with street
No,
parking.
that's where it came into play, that's how I got asked. And it was, I get it that that's private property, but the street parking, it was, you know, there's not enough street parking, and it's like, well, that's is a village thing, but there's reasons why there were no parking zones or limited parking zones
And for those,
set up.
yeah.
Yeah,
that
there's
makes
reasons
sense.
why.
That
And,
makes
and you'll have the same problem, because then you'll have people still not buying passes, which is what the whole reason for that is, because they're gonna think that there's street parking, and then they're gonna expand further and further and further beyond what it is, and then we're still gonna have a ticket issue,
Yeah.
so I don't think that that's really the solution either.
The snowball, yeah, okay.
Any other questions for Chris?
Who's the Easter Bunny?
Huh? Well, yeah, so Ally and I are gonna partner this year again for our extravaganza. So that's gonna be on April 4th. Officer Manders is, taking charge of this one this year. So, yeah, we're looking for an Easter bunny. And again, small, 5 foot, what did I say, 5'4",
Yeah.
less than 200 pounds, so, yeah. We're gonna plan that.
Do you need supplies?
Um,
Do you need help from friends of the library? If you do, let us know.
well, and I think the one thing that would be nice would be maybe some type of snack, because we are doing just like refreshments, so.
Okay.
Yeah, like chips or pretzels or something like that, maybe.
Okay, why don't we talk, we have a
Sounds
meeting
great.
prior to that.
Perfect.
He's gonna be. How tall are you?
I don't have anything else.
What's your weight?
We'll now move to E, Library Director.
All right, so I was just gonna go over some of our monthly stats. We had 29 new cards created in February, which brings us to 56 new patrons this year. Considering it's the beginning of March, we're pretty happy with that. It's pretty exciting. In February, we had 170 program attendees, which is broken down by 95 kids, 73 adults, and 2 teens. We had one of our 2 part-time positions has been filled. We still have 1 open. Applications are still coming in, doing interviews, so we're getting that process moving. We have a film showing on March 27th. It's at 4 p.m. It's the Friday of spring break. We were hoping that some families would still be in town. I know a lot of people go out of town for spring break. And so right now we are doing a Pick Your Flick Penny War to get the community involved in choosing which movie we provide, as well as partnering with the friends to create it as a fundraiser as well. We had one little girl come in with her penny jar tonight, so that was pretty exciting to see. We've had some people sabotaging other movies already by bringing in some silvers, which is pretty amusing considering it's only been on our table since Monday. The 4 movies that we are going to be choosing between is Toy Story 4, Abominable, The Lion King, and Frozen 2. So big blockbuster hits this year. We're pretty excited. The police department, I checked with Officer Sweeney. He's going to be allowing us to use his big popcorn machine. So we'll wheel that down. We'll have light refreshments as well. So we're pretty excited for that one. And then as Pat had mentioned earlier, the Friends of the Library book sale is the last weekend of May. So that's going to be Friday the 29th and Saturday the 30th. It's the weekend after Memorial Day. And then, as the chief had mentioned, we have the extravaganza that we're partnering with, and I'm pretty excited.
The Pick Your Flick, the movie thing, it's free, right? I'm just asking
Yes.
because a school just got fined by Disney for
Yes.
selling
And
to see the
we
movie.
actually purchase a movie license every year
Okay.
to show
Just
films,
making
and
sure,
Disney
'cause-
films are covered by our license.
They got fined like $3,000
Wow.
for charging
Yep,
for having a movie showing.
yep. It is free.
No, I mean, if it's,
Display, it's copyrighted
Yeah.
materials, if you don't have a license for display.
so just making sure,
Public
because
display,
it was something that I just heard.
We're very lucky that our license covers many of the film production companies,
Indeed.
so that we can show Disney films, which is pretty.
Just
scary.
checking, it was pretty steep. I was like, oh boy.
I did see that, and I was very grateful that we got our license this year.
Good.
Are there any questions for Ally? Now we'll move to F, attorney.
I have nothing.
G is building permit report and is in the packet. H is municipal court report, and there is none. 11, communication and miscellaneous business. Black Otter Lake District News.
We haven't had a meeting, but I just wanted to update people that the lake cleanup is going to be April 25th with a bad weather date of May 2nd. And the DECA group from the high school is going to be involved. And Alley Cat Coffee House they're kind of coordinating with DECA. The kids at the high school are going to be really promoting it. And so we're going to do lake cleanup, but also hopefully village cleanup in honor of Earth Day. So I think it'll be good.
We'll now move to Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
Nothing yet.
I attended last night. Probably the biggest news is now with the new accident recovery fees. We did receive 2 out of the 4 payments in the month of January. So the program is working. They came directly from the insurance companies. So we started a fund at the admin at any time. So it's a reserve fund for the fire department. So then the village does retain 25% for administrative fees. So the program's working. I was at their meeting last night. They had no reportable accidents for the month of February, so which is good. So nothing more than that. We will, on the 10th of the month, then that's the 1 month mark. We will then resubmit for another payment. It's a 30-day, or it's a 1 month. Then the second month it goes out again, second notice. At that point, you can then go to either county or state if they're on state or county highways and get your. You can file for full refund then from the state or county. So.
We'll move to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run and Report News, and it's in the packet. D is Hortonville Civic Association.
Not much to report, other than we came out with our raffle licensed fundraiser. We got 300 tickets for sale for $100 a piece, but the top prize is $10,000, and there's 15 different levels of prize money. So they're available. They're going out to the bars and restaurants in the local area, New London. I think Nancy Willenkamp is helping to distribute them, but we've got them available at Donaldson's too. So if you think $100 is a big price, yeah, but the commercial club does it, but they give away a Harley too. But we've had a lot of people split the ticket. So $20 a head, 5 people, or $50 for 2 people, so it's doable. We've sold, out of the 300, I think we've got, anyway, it only came out Monday, I think we've sold about 55 already, so I think we'll hit our goal with 300. I've got one set aside for Bob.
No, that's not done.
Is there an event associated with it? I missed that.
Yeah, the drawing is the Saturday of the Hortonville Homecoming. Big Ferrari is playing it from 7:30 to 11, and the drawing's at 9:30 when they take their half-hour break. And you don't have to be present to win.
Did you get up your $100 to give it to him?
Yeah.
And Peter, that's the first Saturday in June again?
Yes. Actually, no, take that back. It's the weekend after Labor Day, our Memorial Day, so it's the 30th,
What is it?
29th and
This year.
30th. Yeah, so it's the last Saturday of the month of May.
Same day as book sale.
Yes.
Any questions for Peter? Now we'll move to E, Senior Activities Committee.
Okay, we met, like I mentioned earlier, this past Thursday. Talked about the building process already. The meal site attendance has increased. They're averaging 3 people a day, which sounds real minimal, but it was like 1 or 0 for a while there. We've been trying to piggyback programs at the meal site. So February 17th, we had some vocal groups from the high school that came, and I think we had about 25 people that ate lunch there. On February 25th, we had an advanced care planning workshop put on by the Advanced Care Planning Association. It was free for those that attended, and we had about 20, so people ate lunch before that. And we're looking at bringing them back. It's a 4-part series for the fall, depending on how that works out with the library and the senior activities. April 6th will be at the Opera House because elections here are the 7th, and we're having some members of the Hortonville Middle School Jazz Band play, planning some field trips, looking at classes. The library outreach is continuing at Pinewood and Care Partners. And the next meeting is March 26th.
Any questions for Pat? If not, we'll move to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Nothing? 13, we will look for adjournment.
I so move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Yeah, not for
I go into the first mine. I went to Portland and Judge and they're always showing me everything. No, we really need to.
You got one more interview tomorrow? One more spot? You said you had an application. Maybe a question.
Sorry, I just got. No, that's okay.
Would you work for less money?
So,
No, but I just in general.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Play with our own.
Right.
That's right. You know, because a lot of insight into the financial,
Well, so we.
Thank you, yeah. So I honestly already attended and I ended up sticking around with it just to. I had the last.
that's what I'm trying to figure out, really.
I've never just stayed at the station other than a quick phone call when they called and that way. So I can contact, I have to figure out when the next coordinator is talking, schedule it. Yes. Or something, I don't know what direction, I don't think there is an official time. It's more about.
Yeah, right. Need to break it
I don't know, I saw a thing with feet the other day. You know. The coronavirus, they just all everyone had to jump behind it.
And I got that right back. I know.
I just laughed, we were on the last board meeting, and you weren't here, and it was just that.
You do.
No official committee.
I just wanted to.
And I feel like you did here. It was on the agenda.
Okay, so you think.
No, and
Pulling over 4 people.
like I said, you're out of order. I just said, and it was my understanding that it was job members. I want to understand their process a little bit better. But I feel everything in the sandbox, and they want to understand it. One thing about driving, we'll all be in the same sandbox and work together and not proceed. I was very receptive and just listened.
This number is probably.
Anyway, it's business. It's business, I understand, and I made no promises, and I said, I will sit here and listen. That's why I joined it, because that's why I joined 4 years. Here's what we do, and there was no, but it was very much
Nathan, I
about.
need to give these to you if I can.
Here's this, here's this, here's this.
Sean,
Okay.
I joined.
And the results. So you're actually doing
You still sign.
So there's a first Wednesday?
First Wednesday, and then the trials are on the second Wednesday. But trials are usually.
Was there a trial night? That's why it was on the first Wednesday.
Yeah, and they're usually not.
I can look
There's
at the
sometimes
docs.
more privatized stuff.
Because there's you, I understand that. Yeah, can you just let us know when the next official?
Well, they have a good proposal.
You wanna be there?
But the trials, I think the next one
I
is.
enjoy it though, I love this community.
Isn't that nice to hear? It is really. For somebody that's
That's why, something like that. Yeah. I had never gone before, and I go into it open-minded, but I also go into knowing that I'm not gonna make anybody change their behavior, because you can't make people change their behavior, but you can change how you react to their behavior, and maybe.
She was in Wausau.
Well, all I did was offer any suggestions, it's not my place. I'm one person on the task force, and I felt like, I'll listen, just listen, and then I did ask David for some things, and he said,
I wanna understand.
you wanna listen and understand. All right, and that's what I.
Thanks so much.